You never expect your life to change in front of an audience. That's the thing about live streaming, most nights, it's just you, a camera, and a handful of people on the other side of the screen. You get used to the routine, the ring lights glow, the chat scrolling by, the comfort of knowing you can always hit end stream if things get weird. But what happens when you're not the one in control anymore? What happens when someone else decides what your audience sees, someone who knows you better than you know yourself? It started on a Thursday, the kind of night that felt like every other. I'd been streaming for almost 3 years, building a small but loyal community. My channel was nothing special, just a mix of gaming, late-night Q&As, and the occasional story time. I wasn't famous, but I had regulars. People who showed up every night, who knew my dog's name, who sent memes and inside jokes that made the chat feel like a living room. It was the kind of comfort you don't realize you need until it's gone. That night, I was playing an indie horror game, the kind with pixelated graphics and cheap jump scares. The chat was lively, teasing me every time I flinched. I was halfway through a level when the first glitch happened. The screen flickered, just for a second, and the game froze. I muttered a curse, apologized to the chat, and rebooted. Technical difficulties, folks. Hang tight. The chat filled with the usual jokes, it's the ghost in the machine. Spooky stream. But I could feel a prickle of unease. I'd had crashes before, but this felt different. The game loaded, but the colors were off, the music warped and slow. I tried to play it cool, but my hands were sweating. Then, the chat started acting up. Messages appeared that I hadn't seen before, strange strings of numbers, symbols, and what looked like code. At first, I thought it was a troll, someone spamming the chat with nonsense. I switched to subscriber-only mode, but the messages kept coming. They weren't coming from any username I recognized. In fact, they weren't coming from any username at all. Just blank spaces, as if the sender was invisible. I tried to ignore it, focusing on the game, but the messages grew more frequent, more insistent. Some of them started to make sense. Look behind you. Do you see me? I'm here. The chat exploded with confusion, viewers asking if I was okay, if I was pranking them, if this was some kind of ARG. I laughed it off, but my voice sounded thin, even to me. Then, the screen went black. For a moment, I thought I'd lost power, but the ring light was still on, the chat still scrolling. My webcam feed was the only thing left, just me, sitting in the dark, staring at my own reflection. I reached for the mouse, but the cursor wouldn't move. The chat was still going, but now every message was the same, hello, Alex. My real name. Not my username, not the nickname my friends used. I hadn't used Alex anywhere on my channel. My heart started to race. I tried to end the stream, but the button was grayed out, unresponsive. I unplugged the camera, but the feed stayed live. I shut the laptop, but the ring light stayed on, the chat still scrolling by in the darkness. I heard a sound behind me, a soft, electronic chime, like a notification. I turned, but there was nothing there. When I looked back at the screen, a new window had opened. It was a text box, black background, white letters. Do you want to play a game? I stared at it, my hands shaking. The chat was frozen now, every message replaced by the same line, yes. I tried to type a response, but the keyboard was dead. The only thing I could do was watch as the cursor blinked, waiting. Then, the screen changed. My webcam feed shrank to the corner, replaced by a new video, grainy, black and white, like an old security camera. It showed my living room, empty except for the faint outline of my dog sleeping on the couch. The camera panned, slowly, to the front door. I felt a cold wave of fear. I didn't have any security cameras in my apartment. The chat exploded again, viewers asking if this was a prank, if I'd set up a new camera angle. I tried to speak, to explain, but my mic was muted. I watched, helpless, as the camera feed zoomed in on the door. The handle turned, slowly, and the door creaked open. A figure stepped inside, tall, hooded, face hidden in shadow. The chat went wild, messages flying by too fast to read. The figure walked to the center of the room, turned to face the camera, and raised a hand in a slow, deliberate wave. The screen went black. For a moment, I just sat there, frozen, staring at my own reflection in the black screen. My mind raced through every possible explanation, some elaborate prank, a glitch, maybe even a hallucination brought on by too many late nights. But the fear was real, crawling up my spine, making my skin prickle. I tried to end the stream again, but the controls were still locked. The chat was gone, replaced by a single line of text that pulsed in the center of the screen, "Welcome to the show." I reached for my phone, desperate to call someone, Sam, my best friend, or maybe even the police. But my phone was dead, the screen refusing to light up no matter how many times I pressed the button. I glanced at the router, but the lights were still blinking, the internet still up. It was just me, the camera, and whoever was on the other side of the screen. The blackness on my monitor flickered, and suddenly, I was looking at a split screen. On one side, my webcam feed, me, pale and wide-eyed, sitting in the glow of the ring light. On the other, the same grainy security camera footage, but now the figure was closer, standing in the middle of my living room, head tilted as if listening for something. I could see the details now. The hoodie was old, frayed at the cuffs, and the hands were gloved, fingers long and thin. A new message appeared on the screen, this time in red, "Let's play a game, Alex." I tried to speak, to ask what they wanted, but my mic was still muted. The figure in the video turned, as if hearing me anyway, and walked toward the hallway that led to my bedroom. My heart hammered in my chest. I looked around, half expecting to hear footsteps in the hall, but the apartment was silent except for the faint hum of electronics. The screen changed again. Now it showed a list, my email addresses, old passwords, even the name of my childhood pet. Information I'd never shared online, things I hadn't thought about in years. The cursor hovered over each item, highlighting them one by one. "I know you," the text read. "I know everything." The chat reappeared, but it wasn't my viewers anymore. It was just lines of code, scrolling too fast to read, interspersed with fragments of my own messages from past streams. Jokes I'd made, secrets I'd let slip, moments I'd forgotten. It was like watching my life unravel in real time. Then, the figure in the video stopped in front of my bedroom door. The camera zoomed in, the image distorting, the colors bleeding into each other. The door opened, and the screen went black again. A new window popped up, a video call request. The username was just a string of numbers, but the profile picture was my own face, distorted and blurred. I hesitated, every instinct screaming at me to shut the laptop, to run, to do anything but accept. But my hand moved on its own, clicking, accept, as if I had no choice. The call connected. For a moment, there was only static. Then, the image resolved into a live feed of my bedroom. The camera was angled from the corner, showing my bed, my desk, the posters on the wall. I wasn't in the room, but I could see the door slowly creak open. The hooded figure stepped inside, moving with a strange, jerky motion, as if the video was skipping frames. The figure walked to the desk, sat down in my chair, and turned to face the camera. The hood fell back, revealing a face that was both familiar and utterly wrong. It was my face, but twisted, the features stretched and blurred, the eyes empty and black. The figure smiled, a slow, unnatural grin that sent a jolt of terror through me. It leaned forward, staring into the camera, and spoke in my own voice, perfectly mimicked, "Thank you for letting me in." The call ended. The screen went black. My webcam light flickered off. For a moment, the apartment was silent, the only sound my own ragged breathing. Then, my phone buzzed. The screen lit up with a new message, a single image of my bedroom, empty except for the chair, slowly spinning in the center of the room. I stared at the image, my mind refusing to process what I was seeing. The chair in my bedroom, spinning slowly, the shadows in the corners impossibly deep. I wanted to believe it was a trick, some kind of video overlay, but the details were too perfect, the scuff on the floor, the way the light from the hallway spilled across the carpet. It was my room, right now, and I was watching it from the outside. I forced myself to move, to get up and check. My legs felt numb as I crept down the hallway, every step echoing in the silence. I reached my bedroom door and hesitated, my hand hovering over the knob. I pressed my ear to the wood, listening. Nothing. No footsteps, no breathing, just the faint hum of electronics from the living room. I pushed the door open. The room was empty. The chair was still, facing the desk. Everything looked normal, but the air felt wrong, thick, heavy, charged with static. I checked the closet, under the bed, behind the curtains. Nothing. I stood in the center of the room, heart pounding, trying to convince myself it was over. But when I went back to the living room, my laptop was on, the screen filled with lines of code scrolling faster than I could read. My webcam light was on again, even though the camera app was closed. I reached for the power button, but the screen flickered, and a new message appeared: "You can't hide." The chat reappeared, but this time it was different. The usernames were all variations of my own, old email addresses, forgotten screen names, even the name I'd used on a childhood forum. Each one sent the same message, over and over: "Let me in." I slammed the laptop shut, yanked the power cord from the wall, and backed away. The ring light flickered, then went out. The apartment was plunged into darkness, the only light coming from my phone, still displaying the image of the spinning chair. I called Sam, my hands shaking so badly I could barely hold the phone. He answered on the first ring, his voice groggy with sleep. "Alex? What's wrong?" I tried to explain, but the words tumbled out in a rush, about the stream, the hacker, the video call, the messages. Sam listened, silent, then said, "I'm coming over. Don't do anything. Don't answer the door." I sat on the floor, knees pulled to my chest, staring at the dark screen of my laptop. Every sound in the apartment made me jump, the creak of the pipes, the distant rumble of thunder, the soft tap of rain against the window. I kept glancing at the door, half expecting to see the hooded figure step inside. Sam arrived 20 minutes later, out of breath, his hair plastered to his forehead from the rain. He took one look at me and locked the door behind him. "Show me," he said. I powered up the laptop, my hands trembling. The screen flickered to life, but this time it was just my desktop, no code, no chat, no video feed. I opened the browser, checked my stream archive. The last video was there, but it was corrupted, just a few seconds of static before cutting to black. Sam frowned. Maybe it was just a hack. Some kind of elaborate prank. I shook my head. It felt real. Too real. He checked the router, the security settings, ran every scan he could think of. Nothing. No malware, no remote access, no sign of intrusion. "It's clean," he said, but his voice was uncertain. We sat in silence, the tension thick between us. I told him about the messages, the spinning chair, the face on the video call. He listened, his expression growing more serious with every detail. "Maybe you should take a break from streaming," he said finally. "Just for a while. Let things cool off." I nodded, too exhausted to argue. Sam stayed the night, sleeping on the couch while I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to the rain. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the hooded figure, my own face twisted into that impossible grin. When morning came, the fear hadn't faded. If anything, it had grown sharper, more insistent. I knew this wasn't over. I knew the hacker, whoever, whatever they were, wasn't done with me yet. The next few days passed in a haze of anxiety and exhaustion. I tried to go about my life as if nothing had happened, but every moment felt off-kilter, like I was walking through a world that had shifted just a few degrees out of alignment. I unplugged my streaming setup, covered my webcam with tape, and left my laptop closed. I even turned off notifications on my phone, but it didn't help. The sense of being watched was always there, lurking just out of sight. Sam checked in constantly, texting and calling, making sure I wasn't alone. He offered to stay over again, but I told him I needed space, needed to prove to myself that I could handle this. I tried to distract myself with errands, with cleaning, with anything that would keep my mind busy. But the smallest things would set me off: a flicker of static on the TV, a notification sound that didn't belong, a shadow moving in the corner of my eye. On the third night, I woke up at 3:13 a.m. to the sound of my phone buzzing. I stared at the screen, dread pooling in my stomach. It was a text from an unknown number. "Did you miss me?" Attached was a short video clip. Against my better judgment, I pressed play. The video was shot from my own webcam. I was asleep in bed, the covers pulled up to my chin. The camera zoomed in slowly, the image distorting, the colors bleeding into each other. In the background, the chair in my bedroom began to spin, just like in the earlier image. Then, a figure stepped into frame, hooded, faceless, moving with that same jerky, unnatural motion. It leaned over my sleeping form, its hand reaching out, fingers inches from my face. The video cut to black. I dropped the phone, my breath coming in short, panicked gasps. I checked the locks, the windows, every corner of the apartment. Nothing. No sign of forced entry, no evidence that anyone had been inside. But the fear was real, a living thing that wrapped itself around my chest and refused to let go. I called Sam, my voice shaking. He answered on the first ring. "I'm coming over," he said, no questions asked. When he arrived, he found me sitting on the floor, back against the wall, phone clutched in my hand. He took one look at the video and swore under his breath. "This isn't just a prank, Alex. This is personal. Someone's targeting you." We spent the rest of the night trying to trace the number, searching for any clue that might explain what was happening. But every lead was a dead end. The number was unregistered, the video file wiped itself from my phone after we watched it. It was as if the hacker was always one step ahead, always watching. The next day, Sam suggested we go to the police. I was hesitant. What could I possibly tell them? That a faceless figure had taken over my stream, sent me videos of myself sleeping, and seemed to know everything about me? But Sam insisted, and I agreed, if only to have someone else believe me. At the station, we explained everything. The officer listened patiently, took notes, and promised to look into it. But I could see the skepticism in his eyes, the way he glanced at Sam as if to say, "Is your friend okay?" He asked if I'd been under a lot of stress, if I'd ever experienced hallucinations or sleep paralysis. I wanted to scream, to make him understand that this was real, that I wasn't making it up. We left the station feeling more alone than ever. Sam tried to reassure me, but I could see the doubt creeping in. "Maybe you should stay with me for a while," he said. "Just until this blows over." I agreed, too tired to argue. We packed a bag and headed to his place, the city outside feeling colder, emptier than I'd ever known. That night, as I lay on Sam's couch, I checked my phone one last time before bed. No new messages, no missed calls. I tried to convince myself that the worst was over, that the hacker had moved on to someone else. But deep down, I knew the truth. This was only the beginning. The first night at Sam's place, I barely slept. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the hooded figure standing over me, its face shifting and empty, its hand reaching out. I kept the lights on, the TV playing old sitcoms in the background, anything to drown out the silence. Sam slept in his room with the door open, checking on me every hour or so. I could tell he was worried, but he tried to act normal, making jokes, offering snacks, pretending this was just another sleepover from our college days. The next morning, I woke to the smell of coffee and the sound of Sam typing furiously at his computer. He'd set up a new email account, a fresh phone number, and was researching every possible way to trace the hacker. "We're not just going to sit here and wait for the next move," he said, determination in his eyes. "We're going to fight back." We spent the day changing passwords, setting up two-factor authentication, and wiping every device I owned. Sam even installed a new router, one with a built-in firewall and VPN. For a while, it felt like we were taking control, building a wall between me and whatever was out there. But the sense of safety was fragile, easily shattered. That afternoon, Sam got a call from an unknown number. He put it on speaker, and for a moment, there was only static. Then, a voice, distorted, mechanical, but unmistakably mine, spoke. "You can't hide, Sam. You can't help him. He's already let me in." The call ended. Sam stared at the phone, his face pale. How did they get my number? I didn't have an answer. The fear was back, sharper than ever. We double-checked every device, every account, but found nothing. It was as if the hacker was everywhere and nowhere at once, slipping through every crack in our defenses. That night, we tried to act normal. We ordered pizza, watched a movie, tried to laugh at the absurdity of it all. But the tension was always there, a silent third presence in the room. Every time my phone buzzed, I jumped. Every time the lights flickered, my heart skipped a beat. At midnight, Sam suggested we try streaming again, just for a few minutes, to see if anything happened. I hesitated, but agreed. We set up a new account, a new username, a new everything. We went live, the chat empty except for a few test messages from Sam's phone. For the first few minutes, everything was normal. The video feed was clear, the audio crisp. I started to relax, thinking maybe we'd finally shaken the hacker. But then, the chat started to fill with messages, strings of numbers, symbols, and code, just like before. The usernames were all variations of my own, each one sending the same message, "Welcome back." The screen flickered, and the video feed glitched. For a split second, the image changed, not to my face, but to the hooded figure, sitting in the chair in my bedroom, the shadows swirling around it. The feed snapped back to normal, but the damage was done. The fear was back, stronger than ever. We ended the stream, hearts pounding. Sam stared at the screen, his jaw clenched. "This isn't just a hacker. This is something else." I nodded, my hands shaking. "I think it's inside the stream." Inside the code. It's not just watching, it's waiting. That night, I dreamed of the chair again. But this time, I wasn't alone. The hooded figure sat across from me, its face a shifting blur. It leaned forward, its voice a whisper in my ear, "You let me in. Now you can't get out." I woke up gasping, the taste of fear sharp on my tongue. The room was dark, the only light coming from my phone, which buzzed with a new message, a single image of the chair, empty, waiting. I spent the next day in a fog, every sound and shadow setting my nerves on edge. Sam tried to keep things light, but I could see the worry in his eyes. He suggested we take a break from technology, no phones, no computers, no TV. We went for a walk in the park, the air crisp and clean, the world outside feeling almost normal. For a while, I let myself believe that the nightmare was over, that the hacker had finally lost interest. But as the sun set and we headed back to Sam's apartment, the old dread crept in. I kept glancing over my shoulder, half expecting to see the hooded figure lurking in the shadows. When we got inside, Sam checked the router, the locks, every window. "Just being careful," he said, forcing a smile. We made dinner, talked about anything but the stream, and tried to pretend that life was ordinary. But when I went to the bathroom, I found a message written on the mirror in the steam, "I see you." My heart pounded. I called for Sam, but by the time he arrived, the message had faded, leaving only a smudge. That night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, listening to the hum of the city outside. At 3 a.m., my phone buzzed again. This time, it was a video call request from an unknown number. I showed it to Sam, and we watched as the screen filled with static, then slowly resolved into a live feed of my old apartment. The camera panned across the empty living room, then down the hallway to my bedroom. The chair was there, spinning slowly, the shadows in the corners impossibly deep. The feed cut out, replaced by a single line of text, "Come home." Sam and I stared at each other, the fear thick between us. "It wants you to go back," he said quietly. I shook my head. "I'm not going. I'm not giving it what it wants." But the messages kept coming. Every hour, a new image, a new video, a new demand, "Come home. Let me in. Finish the game." We tried everything, blocking numbers, changing devices, even turning off the power. But nothing worked. The messages always found a way through, always with the same relentless insistence. By the third night, I was exhausted, my mind fraying at the edges. I started to wonder if I was losing my grip on reality, if the hacker was even real, or if I'd conjured the whole thing out of fear and sleeplessness. Sam tried to reassure me, but I could see the doubt in his eyes. That evening, as we sat in the dark, the power flickered and died. The apartment was plunged into silence, the only light coming from the street lamps outside. My phone buzzed one last time, the screen lighting up with a final message, "Time's up." The room grew cold, the air thick with static. I heard a sound from the hallway, a soft, deliberate knock. Sam grabbed my arm, his voice barely a whisper. "Don't answer." But the knock came again, louder this time, more insistent. I felt a pull, a compulsion to get up, to open the door, to let whatever was out there inside. I fought it with everything I had, clinging to Sam, to the memory of who I was before all this began. The knock faded, replaced by silence. The power flickered back on, the apartment returning to normal. But I knew, deep down, that nothing would ever be normal again. The next morning, the world felt strangely quiet, as if the city itself was holding its breath. Sam and I barely spoke over breakfast, both of us lost in our own thoughts. I kept checking my phone, half expecting another message, another image of the chair, but the screen stayed blank. For the first time in days, there was nothing, no calls, no texts, no static. The silence was almost worse than the noise. Sam suggested we get out of town for a while, just disappear, leave everything behind. Maybe if you break the pattern, it'll lose its grip, he said. I wanted to believe him, but I wasn't sure it would be that easy. Still, I agreed. We packed a bag, left a note for the landlord, and drove out of the city, heading for the coast. The drive was long and quiet, the landscape changing from gray concrete to rolling green hills. I watched the world blur by, trying to convince myself that distance could break the connection, that the hacker, whatever it was, couldn't follow me here. We found a small motel by the ocean, the kind of place where the Wi-Fi barely worked and the only sounds were the waves and the wind. For a few days, things felt almost normal. We walked on the beach, ate greasy diner food, and talked about everything except the stream. I started to feel like myself again, the fear receding with every passing hour. I even slept through the night, the first time in weeks. But on the third night, I woke to the sound of the ocean roaring outside the window. I checked my phone, more out of habit than fear. The screen was dark, but as I set it down, it buzzed once, just a single vibration, no notification, no message. I stared at it, waiting, but nothing happened. The next morning, Sam went out for coffee while I stayed behind, enjoying the quiet. I wandered down to the lobby, where an old computer sat in the corner, dusty and unused. On a whim, I turned it on. The screen flickered to life, the desktop cluttered with icons. I opened the browser, intending to check the news, but the homepage was already set to a familiar site, my streaming channel. My heart pounded as I scrolled through the archives. The last stream was still there, but the thumbnail had changed. Instead of my face, it was the hooded figure, sitting in the chair, its head tilted as if waiting for me. I clicked play, my hands shaking. The video started with static, then slowly resolved into a live feed of the motel room. I saw myself, sitting at the computer, staring at the screen. The camera panned to the window, where the ocean crashed against the rocks. Then, the hooded figure appeared behind me, its hand reaching out, fingers inches from my shoulder. I spun around, but the room was empty. The only sound was the wind rattling the glass. I turned back to the computer, but the video was gone, replaced by a single line of text, "You can't run." Sam found me sitting there, pale and shaking. I told him what happened, showed him the empty browser, the blank screen. He didn't say anything, just put a hand on my shoulder and led me back to the room. That night, I dreamed of the chair again. But this time, I was alone. The hooded figure was gone, the shadows receding. I sat in the chair, facing the window, watching the sun rise over the ocean. For the first time, I felt a sense of peace, a sense that maybe, just maybe, I could take my life back. But when I woke, my phone buzzed with a new message, "See you soon." I showed Sam the message, my hands trembling. He read it, jaw clenched, then tossed my phone onto the bed as if distance alone could keep us safe. "We can't keep running," he said quietly. "We have to face this. Whatever it is, it's not going to stop until you do." I nodded, feeling a strange mix of dread and resolve. I was tired of being afraid, tired of letting a faceless hacker dictate my every move. "What do we do?" I asked. Sam thought for a long moment. "We go back. We set up one last stream. But this time, we control the narrative. We show everyone what's happening. If it wants an audience, we give it one, but on our terms." The idea terrified me, but it also made sense. The hacker thrived in the shadows, in secrecy and fear. Maybe if we dragged it into the light, it would lose its power. Maybe if I stopped running, I could finally take my life back. We drove back to the city the next morning, the tension thick between us. I barely spoke, lost in my own thoughts, replaying every moment of the nightmare that had taken over my life. When we reached my apartment, everything was just as I'd left it, except for the chair in my bedroom, which now faced the door, as if waiting for me. Sam helped me set up a new stream, this time with every security measure we could think of. We used a fresh laptop, a new account, and a hardwired connection. We set up cameras in every room, determined to catch anything that happened. I posted a message to my followers, inviting them to watch, to witness whatever came next. As the stream went live, the chat filled with familiar names, friends, regulars, even a few skeptics who thought it was all a stunt. I explained everything, from the first glitch to the messages, the videos, the dreams. I showed them the chair, the empty room, the precautions we'd taken. For a while, nothing happened. The chat was full of support, encouragement, and the occasional troll. Then, at exactly midnight, the screen flickered. The chat froze, every message replaced by a single line, "Welcome back, Alex." The video feed glitched, the image distorting, colors bleeding into each other. For a split second, the hooded figure appeared in the chair, its face still hidden, its hands folded in its lap. The camera zoomed in, the image sharpening until the figure's face filled the screen. It was my face. Twisted, blurred, the eyes empty and black. The chat exploded, viewers demanding answers, some begging me to end the stream, others urging me to keep going. I stared into the camera, my own distorted reflection staring back at me. The figure spoke, its voice layered with static, but unmistakably mine. "You let me in. You gave me your name. You gave me your fear. Now you belong to me." I felt a cold wave wash over me, the room growing darker, the shadows deepening. Sam's voice cut through the haze. "Don't listen. It's just code. It's just a trick." I forced myself to speak, my voice shaking but steady. "You don't control me. Not anymore." The figure smiled, a slow, unnatural grin. "We'll see." The screen went black. The stream ended. The chat was gone. Sam and I sat in silence, the only sound the hum of the computer. I felt empty, drained, but also lighter, as if a weight had been lifted. That night, I slept without dreams. The days that followed felt like waking up from a long, feverish nightmare. I kept waiting for the next message, the next glitch, the next sign that the hacker was still out there, but nothing came. My phone stayed silent. My email was empty. The chair in my bedroom was just a chair again, no spinning, no shadows, no sense of menace. Sam checked in every day, but even he seemed to relax, his jokes returning, his laughter no longer forced. I started streaming again, cautiously at first, then with growing confidence. My audience was smaller, but more loyal than ever. They asked about what happened, but I kept my answers vague. Just some technical issues, I'd say, or took a break for my mental health. Most people accepted it. A few pressed for details, but I never gave them more than I had to. I didn't want to invite the darkness back in. But the experience had changed me. I was more careful, more guarded. I double-checked every setting, every password, every device. I kept a notebook by my desk, jotting down anything that felt off, a flicker of static, a strange message, a shadow that lingered too long. I learned to trust my instincts, to listen to the small voice that warned me when something wasn't right. Sam and I talked about what happened, trying to make sense of it. Was it really a hacker? Some kind of AI gone rogue? Or was it something else, something older, something that fed on fear and attention? We never found an answer. Maybe there wasn't one. One night, a few weeks after the final stream, I got a message from an old friend, someone I hadn't spoken to in years. "Hey, Alex. Weird question, but have you ever heard of a hacker who takes over live streams? I think something's happening to me." My blood ran cold. I called Sam, told him about the message. He was quiet for a long time. "Maybe it's not over," he said. "Maybe it just moved on." I wanted to help, to warn my friend, but I hesitated. I remembered the witness's words from the forums: if you see the chair, don't sit. If you hear the voice, don't answer. If you feel the shadow, don't look back. I typed out a reply, my fingers trembling. "Be careful. Don't engage. Don't give it your name. Don't let it in." I hit send, then turned off my phone, staring at the ceiling in the dark. The fear was back, but it was different now, sharper, more focused. I knew what to look for. I knew how to fight back. The next day, I got another message from my friend. "Thanks for the warning. I think I'm okay. But if anything else happens, I'll let you know." I breathed a sigh of relief, but I couldn't shake the feeling that the story wasn't finished. That somewhere out there, the hacker was still watching, still waiting for someone else to let them in. I started writing about my experience, not for the internet, not for my audience, but for myself. I needed to make sense of what had happened, to put it into words, to take back control of the narrative. The more I wrote, the more the fear faded, replaced by a sense of power, of ownership. I realized that the real danger wasn't the hacker, or the code, or even the shadow in the chair. The real danger was letting fear control me, letting it dictate my actions, my choices, my life. I chose to move forward. To keep streaming, to keep living, to keep telling my story. I started to see my story in other people's eyes. Every time I logged on, every time I scrolled through chat or checked my DMs, I noticed the subtle signs of fear and curiosity in my viewers. Some sent messages late at night, asking if I'd ever felt watched, if I'd ever had a stream go wrong in a way that couldn't be explained. Others shared their own stories, glitches, strange messages, moments when the line between the digital and the real seemed to blur. I listened, I replied, I tried to reassure them. But I never told them everything. Some truths are too heavy to share with strangers, even ones who feel like friends. Sam and I kept in touch with my old friend, the one who'd messaged about the hacker. For a while, things were quiet. Then, one night, he called in a panic. "It's happening again," he whispered. "The chair, the messages, the voice. I did what you said, but it's still here." I felt the old fear return, cold and sharp. "Don't answer it," I said. "Don't let it in. I'll come over." Sam and I drove across town, the city lights blurring past, the tension thick between us. When we arrived, my friend's apartment was dark, the only light coming from the glow of his computer screen. He sat at his desk, staring at the monitor, his face pale and drawn. On the screen was the now familiar image, the chair, the hooded figure, the shadows swirling. The chat was filled with messages, all variations of his name, all demanding the same thing: "Let me in." We unplugged the computer, turned off every device, sat together in the dark. My friend shook, his hands clenched into fists. "It's not just code," he said. "It's something else. Something that knows me." I nodded. "I know. But you're not alone. We'll get through this." We stayed with him that night, talking, laughing, doing anything to keep the fear at bay. By morning, the worst had passed. The messages stopped. The chair was just a chair again. But I knew it could come back. I knew it was always waiting, always watching, always searching for the next person to let it in. I started to think about the nature of fear, about how it spreads, how it grows in the dark. I realized that the hacker, the shadow, the chair, they were all just reflections of something deeper, something inside us all. The need to be seen, the fear of being known, the terror of losing control. I decided to use my platform for something more. I started a new series on my channel, talking about digital safety, about the importance of boundaries, about the dangers of letting strangers into your life, online or off. The response was overwhelming. People shared their own stories, their own fears, their own victories over the darkness. I realized that the only way to fight back was to shine a light, to refuse to let fear dictate my life. I couldn't erase what had happened, but I could choose what came next. The hacker never returned. The chair stayed empty. The shadows faded. But I never forgot the lesson I learned: you can't always control what happens to you, but you can control how you respond. You can choose to let fear in, or you can choose to fight back. And sometimes, that's enough. Maybe the strangest part is how quickly life can return to normal, even after you've seen the edge of something you can't explain. I went back to streaming, back to late-night chats and inside jokes, back to the comfort of routine. But I was different. I was more careful, more aware of the boundaries between myself and the world on the other side of the screen. I learned to trust my instincts, to listen to the small voice that warned me when something felt off. I learned that not every message deserves a reply, not every glitch is harmless, and not every viewer is just there to watch. Sam and I stayed close, our friendship forged in the fire of what we'd survived. We talked often about what happened, about the way fear can take root and grow if you let it. We both agreed that the real danger wasn't the hacker, or the code, or even the shadow in the chair. The real danger was letting fear dictate your life, letting it make you small, letting it convince you that you're powerless. I started to see echoes of my story everywhere, on forums, in DMs, in the nervous laughter of other streamers who'd had their own brushes with the unknown. I realized that the internet is full of doors, and most of the time, we open them without thinking. Most of the time, nothing happens. But sometimes, something looks back. I made it my mission to help others set boundaries, to talk openly about digital safety, to remind people that it's okay to be afraid, but it's not okay to let fear win. I told my story in pieces, never giving away the whole truth, but always leaving a warning: be careful what you let in. Be careful who you trust. And if you ever see a message that feels wrong, a glitch that makes your skin crawl, a shadow that lingers too long, don't ignore it. Don't let it in. The chair in my bedroom is still there. Sometimes, late at night, I catch myself staring at it, waiting for it to move, for the shadows to shift, for the past to come rushing back. But it never does. It's just a chair now, a reminder of what I survived, and of the choice I made to keep living, to keep fighting, to keep telling my story. If you're listening to this, if you've ever felt watched, if you've ever had a moment when the digital world felt a little too real, know that you're not alone. We all have our shadows. We all have our fears. But we also have the power to choose what we let in, and what we keep out. So lock your doors. Cover your webcams. Trust your instincts. And remember, you're the one in control, even when it feels like you're not. Because the real story isn't about the hacker, or the stream, or the chair. The real story is about what you do next. And if you ever find yourself staring into the darkness, wondering if something is staring back, remember my story. Remember that you can always choose to turn on the light.